Psychotherapist Karen McCorkle grew up in northern New Jersey, moving to Atlanta in 1997 when her two kids were small. After spending time in the business world, Karen shifted her career trajectory towards her original love, psychotherapy. She joined Powers Ferry Psychological Associates in 2014. Karen loves neighborhood walks with her pup and cooking for her friends. She recently joined Dina Zeckhausen at the Buckhead office to discuss the challenges of parenting and the winding road of psychotherapy. This is Therapists on Couches Sipping Tea.
So why do you love your job?
Well, I guess I consider it a calling. I think from a very young age, I was interested in why people did the things they did. I had no knowledge or information about, I didn't even know what psychology was. But even as a 12-year-old, I wrote up little questionnaires for my girlfriends when we were trying to resolve an issue. And I love relating to people on a deep level. I'm an introvert, and by nature, I connect deeply with people, all kinds of people.
That's great. What are the kinds of things that they're looking for from you that are specific areas that you like to work with, that you're good at?
Most of the inquiries focus around help with eating disorders of all kinds, particularly binge eating disorder and bulimia. I also have a strong interest in working with parents, so I see a lot of either kids where there's some parenting problems and there's a piece of parenting work done as well as some work with the child, or I certainly see a tremendous amount of anxiety and depression, panic disorders, which frequently is interlaced with eating disorders. My bio also makes it pretty apparent that I'm married and I have kids, and I think a lot of people, I do couples therapy as well, and I think a lot of people seek me out because I'm older, I've raised children, I've been married for 37 years, and that makes them feel safe from the beginning, or like I have some life experience.
The philosophy of raising kids with love and logic, can you talk about how you've used that with your own kids?
My first child was pretty compliant, liked to please her mom and adults in general, and my second child was his own person right from the get-go, didn't see the point in wearing shoes or clothes or coming to the grocery store or much of anything unless it was his idea. And I wanted to be gentle and kind and loving, but that wasn't quite working with him. So love and logic, the basic philosophy is that you want to preserve the relationship through empathy. So I could understand that he didn't want to, that it was a bummer to have to go to the grocery store at this moment and wear shoes. And I would share the control through choices, and if necessary, let the natural consequences do the teaching. Love and logic doesn't really believe in allowances or chores. You have the children contribute to the household, because everyone does, and you give them some money so they can learn how to manage money, and they can do their chores, or they can contribute to the family, or they can pay you to do their contributions to the family. So the choice can be, you know, do you want to spend the money I give you on something fun, or do you want to pay me to set the table?
Why do you think parents have so much trouble with the logic part? I mean, I think people are good at the love part, but the setting of the consequences, I imagine, is really tough for a lot of parents.
You know, I think part of it is consistency, and I think part of it is sometimes I think intense feelings that the parent may be having may color the way may color the discipline technique. And if they're in a really good mood, they might be very gentle, and if they're in a bad mood or had a rough day, they might be more harsh. And the truth is, it's not necessary to be perfectly consistent, and it's not necessary. For instance, if the child doesn't do his homework and there's a consequence at school, that's enough. And the goal is not to shame the child or rub his nose in whatever the error was. The goal is really to let the child begin to put the pieces together, that their behavior does have consequences, and to think through what their short-term and long-term goals are.
When you're working with parents and you notice that they're really having trouble with following through with some of your recommendations, do you ever explore with them their own experiences as kids and how they were parented so they make the connection?
I do, especially, and I always do that in private with the child. The child is not in the room. Frequently, the work can start out with the parents, and then I may meet the child, or sometimes I don't meet the child. Or sometimes the work starts out with the child, and I realize that really it's more of a relationship issue than a social skills problem or a problem with the child in school. And then sometimes dads in particular were raised in a really harsh way, and they're trying to turn a little kid into a man before he's had time to be a kid. And it doesn't take many sessions for a father to see the connection and shift his style. A couple I worked with in the middle of my career who came in after a late miscarriage and really tremendous grief that the wife was experiencing as depression and the husband was experiencing as anger. And this couple then was feeling disconnected from each other and concerned about their future, and just felt they couldn't solve this by themselves. So the wife called and wanted to come in for couples therapy, and she had started an antidepressant from her primary care physician. And the work launched pretty quickly into a connection to the husband's unresolved grief over the loss of his mother when he was a little boy. And in a way, the wife was just a witness to the husband's grief work. And from there, the husband began to explore really his feelings about his dissatisfaction with his own career, and started to contemplate some changes in his work, which the wife supported. And over time, she went off the antidepressant, and after about 10 months, they tried to get pregnant again, and did. And I saw them after their first baby was born. And a couple years later, they came back to see me to say goodbye, essentially, because they were leaving town, and at that point were pregnant with their second child. So I got to see really the marriage. The work they came in because of a miscarriage, but it involved strengthening their marriage, beginning their family, and changing careers and cities. So, it was 10 months of work, not 10 years. I don't always get to see my clients 5 years after I've finished working with them, but occasionally I do, and I love that too.
The thing that gets them in the door isn't always the thing they end up really working on.
Many times it's the beginning. Many times the presenting problem isn't the whole, it's just a piece of the story, and it might not even be the most important piece. Sometimes it's the whole. Sometimes it's very short and localized, and I did work recently with a wife who came in with just feeling sad and lonely, and really I think she was testing therapy to see if couples therapy made sense. And we did a very quick 4 or 5 sessions, and then that she felt strong enough and brave enough to encourage her husband to come to couples therapy. And at that point I referred them to someone else, and they're continuing to do that work. So that's also, sometimes you're the bridge, and sometimes you're the journey.